Hi, Ellie. So rather than just telling you, this is a good question. To start off with, I want to say this is a very good question. Rather than just telling you that method two is correct and method one is incorrect, I wanted to give you more of an explanation so that you have a deeper understanding of the material and know why one method is correct and one isn't. What your question was asking is, if we're rounding to the thousandth place, do you only look at the number following the thousandth place, in the 10,000th place, or do you look at the 100,000ths and the millions? Do they have an effect on our rounding, or as you say here, do we just disregard those place values? So I've got my document camera here, and I'm going to try and give you an explanation. And I've seen some other explanations of this, but this seems less technical what I'm about to show. So it's not a very good technical answer, but I think it does a good job of visually kind of representing what's going on. So I've got, this is the number you used, and I've got a slightly different one here. And I'm going to round to the hundredths place. So I'm going to use this number out of the hundredths. The same idea applies for what you were asking. And it doesn't really matter which example now that I'm thinking about it, but I've used this one just because. So the number is seven. Well, I mean, I'm going to round to the hundredths, I should say. So maybe that's where I changed it for some reason. But so I'm going to use this number here, and I'm going to round to the hundredths place. And if we used method one, I think on your example, we would look at the very last non-zero digit and start rounding from there and decide what happens. So I've got, and we might lose focus here, but I've got a graph. There's the focus again. So I've got a graph here. Here's 700ths, here's 800ths, and we want to know, do we round up to 800ths or down to 700ths? So I'm going to write the number again right here, and I know we're going to lose focus. I can maybe do this with your number too in a minute. There we go. Okay, I'm going to graph it. Now, here's 0.075. That's that kind of halfway mark. And for rounding, we're saying if it's above that line at all, we're rounding it up to 0.08. If it's below that line at all, we're rounding down to 0.07. And I guess we are going to include exactly 0.075, and that'll round up as well. So if it's exactly 0.075 or above, we round up. Below that at all, we're rounding down. So I'm going to plot just the thousandths place. So we got 0.074. It's going to be right there. Now that is below this. I'll even kind of draw a little dashed line here. Sort of a straight line. It is below that line. Let's plot the 10,000ths place. So we'll keep going. The correct way to do it is to only look at the hundredths place if you're rounding, or the thousandths place, excuse me, and just concern yourself with this number if you're rounding up to the or down to this hundredths place. So we only look at the following number, we disregard the rest. But I'm going to show you why. So now I'm going to plot the next one. So this would be 0.44, just right about there. So I moved up just a little bit closer to that line. So now we'll plot the 100,000ths place, the 6. So I'm still at 0.074, 4, 6, 2, and you'll see that, yeah, we are getting closer and closer and closer to the line, but we're never, ever, ever going to quite get there. Because each place value, each number after the next place value, if we kept going with this 1 to 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, it means that we're never quite getting to that 0.075 that we need to round it up. We're going to get, as we go to the limit, we would say, in calculus or in more advanced math, we get closer and closer and closer and closer. It's almost like an asymptote, if you're familiar with that term. But we never quite get there, no matter how many nines we put after the 2. We just keep getting a little bit closer, never quite getting there. And that's why we can pretty much disregard everything after that next place value. So if I'm rounding to the 10ths place, that got out of focus. If I'm rounding to the 10th or the 100ths place, excuse me. If I'm rounding to the 100ths place, I really only need to look at this place here. This doesn't round it up to 5, which rounds it up to 5, which rounds it up to 8. That makes sense. Like, I understand that concept. I understand why you would think that problem and use that method to try and make it work. But in terms of our application, what we're doing with this number is we're getting closer and closer and closer and closer to that rounding point, but we're never quite getting there. And so we don't need to worry about the rest of these. We disregard all place values after the next place value. So if we're looking for the hundredths, we only look at the thousandths place to determine our rounding. Going back to your question, then your original problem was this one right here. If we're rounding to the thousandths place, I think was your problem that you created, I would only look at the next place value, the hundredth or the 10,000ths place. And again, this 100,000ths is going to get us a little bit closer to making this 5/10,000ths, but not quite. And it'll get closer to that limit, or that asymptote, but never quite there. So we disregard the next numbers, and we only use the next to determine our rounding. And I hope this graphical interpretation is helpful in seeing why that's true. You can certainly Google, and if you really want a more analytic, algebraic, rigorous proof of that, I can find one for you. But hopefully that's a good explanation for you. Let me know if you have other questions.